Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Des Carlisle. Des is the Executive Director for the South East Hydrogen Energy Alliance and also Chief of Staff for Kimbro Group Companies. So welcome, Des. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me today.
So you're going to be one of our speakers at the World Hydrogen North America Congress, which will be our sort of third edition now, which is fast approaching us, I think, May 20th, 21st in Houston. It's sure to be a great event. And maybe you want to maybe sort of reintroduce, I guess, the SHEA as it is, the Southeast Hydrogen Energy Alliance, just recently re-announced or relaunched. So yeah, please tell us a little bit about the alliance.
Absolutely. So I can give you a little background of how Kimbro came into the Southeast Hydrogen Energy Alliance, SHEA, and how the relaunch really happened. So I'll start with SHEA. SHEA actually started in 2006 as a South Carolina Fuel Cell Coalition, and through time really looked at that regional approach. And so in 2020 kind of rebranded into that regional approach. Around that same time, I actually joined the Kimbro companies, and the Kimbro family, fourth generation Tennessee family, really have a portfolio of different companies and in mid to downstream oil and gas. When I met Bill Kimbro, he said, Dad, it's hard enough to take a company from first generation to second, much less fourth to fifth, right? So how do we think differently for my grandkids when they come into this business? And he said, I believe hydrogen's the future. And my background was upstream oil and gas. And I said, what is hydrogen? So we really spent a couple of years learning all we could about it. And we said, okay, we do think this is part of that portfolio going forward. But at that time, it didn't really make sense to necessarily open up a station in Tennessee. We didn't have a lot of cars on the road, if any, in our part of the country. And so we were looking to do something similar to SHEA on a state level, creating a Tennessee organization. And through a connection, we met Dr. Scott McWhorter, who at that time was the chairman of SHEA and is still the chairman of SHEA. And they were a coalition of the willing, doing great work behind the scenes, but really didn't have the presence that they knew that they could. They had a great vision and they were looking to do the same thing. So from that very first conversation, Scott and I realized, hey, together we can do a lot more. And so we joined forces. We took the Kimbro's private funding, and we actually spent 8 months completely rebranding, relaunching, thinking about exactly what the pursuits would be of the organization in order to relaunch and deliver hopefully a really educational website on day one as our starting place. A little history.
Yeah, and what are your sort of key, I guess, sort of initial objectives for this year?
Yes, so SHEA is built on three pursuits, really. So our first pursuit is how do we drive innovation and collaboration among our region? For us, that's commerce. How do we really start to move commerce along? We're producing hydrogen today in multiple of our states that we cover. Now, how do we start to take offtake beyond forklifts, beyond those really low-hanging fruits? And then second, it's not a surprise, but the Southeast has a huge lack of education. You go to California and you talk about hydrogen, everybody knows it. You come here and it's a different story. So really our second one is how do we enable education? For me, that's everything down to hopefully when we have our first transit buses here. For the person who walks on, the general public, can they come to our website and really learn, what am I taking a part of? How is this different? I think all the time, what if you were to step in a Tesla in '09? What would you want to know, right? And then all the way to how do we train our workforce in a very methodical way to make sure that we are doing what the actual industries need. So listening back and forth. And then in parallel, how do we get hydrogen topics in elementary schools so that kids want to study it when they get in high school and beyond high school? And then our final pursuit is really about policy enablement. So in the Southeast, we're not all about incentives, but really about regulation. And how do we create framework that when it is time to really scale up our commerce here, the policy and the regulations are ready for that. So those are real big three objectives this first year. Our goal is a lot of road mapping and understanding the needs of our region.
Excellent. And in terms of the membership, is that started to develop and if people are interested, how can they get involved?
Yeah, great question. So it was important for us to keep our membership as low as possible. We believe in the power of numbers, but we're hoping to be able to bring on that full staff and really do everything we want to do. So if you want to get involved, you can visit our website at seh2.energy. There's a full membership page there for small, medium, and large companies.
Excellent. And in terms of the market and the view and some of the, I guess, first wins that you see happening across the region, are there any specific areas that you think the hydrogen can play a good role?
Absolutely. I think there are a lot of areas. I think it's really about use case, right? And I think we have to think of it in that way, as it's not hydrogen works for everything, or battery electric works for everything, or gasoline or diesel. It is, okay, come tell us your use case, and here's the toolbox of different options within the energy portfolio that we can use. And so I think hydrogen is a game changer when it comes to medium and heavy duty. I think everybody's talking about that.
Yeah.
I think we could really see it move more in the steel making industry. I think, as we look at transit buses, how does that work really well? And maybe it's not a full transit switchover, but in certain routes, fuel cells complement battery really well. And then I think the biggest low-hanging fruit is fuel cell charging stations. Basically, how do you take all of these battery electric vehicles and make sure that they are getting sufficient charge and keeping grid reliance?
Yeah, excellent. Well, it certainly is. It's going to be fascinating to see the growth there in the Southeast. We look forward to meeting you face to face come Houston, and we look forward to seeing the activities of the Alliance over the coming years as we help grow the industry.
Well, we're excited to be there and excited to be a part. Thanks for having me today.
Cheers. Many thanks, Des. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. Take care.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.